What led me here is I remember having this desire that I wanted to speak on stage. And I was working with a coach. I invested a lot of money, but I wasn't getting to the place where I wanted to be. And the money ran out before I could finish my service with him.
Going back a little bit to the storytelling, I feel like everybody's struggling with storytelling, and there's so many different aspects of it. Can you come up with a way to simplify it for people? Like,
This is gonna okay. We might go crazy here for a minute. So
Well-
I believe that most people think that being poor is a good thing. Now they don't actually say that out loud. I want to be poor because that would just be crazy to say out loud. Yeah. So it's helping them craft like a signature talk. Like what is the one key message and helping them outline the presentation. Right. The beginning of the presentation, I call it the hook. How do you capture attention? The storytelling. How do you keep attention? The content is how do you open up and expand.
Brando, hey, let me tell you the truth. It's not about who you know, but who knows you. Brando, it's your story. You can rewrite it if you so choose. It's your life. You decide those moves. Brando, you want to talk about getting the bag? He built a 7-figure brand from scratch. Brando, it's the Brand Up Podcast, but you already know. Enough talking, bro. Let's start this show. Brando.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Brand Up Podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, as you guys are probably used to already, Jesse Cruz. Jesse, well, first of all, hopefully I pronounced your name right. But me and you, we chatted for a little bit, but it's been a while since I wanted to have you on the show. I mainly go into the marketing side of things, but I've noticed, especially the last 2 years, a lot of the things that have to do with marketing and personal branding and branding in general has to do with how you are able to articulate what you do for a living, what you're trying to promote, and then mostly the storytelling part involved. And then all that comes down to how you are able to speak. And of course, in this case, you're going to be the expert. And first of all, before we even get into that, I want to hear your backstory. How did you get into this? And more importantly, why?
What led me here is I remember having this desire that I wanted to speak on stage. And I was working with a coach. I invested a lot of money, but I wasn't getting to the place where I wanted to be. And the money ran out before I could finish my service with him. So I was going to have to call him and tell him, I quit. I can't do this no more. And I was like, well, I got to tell my wife first. And so I get home and I say, Des, we got to talk. And she's like, what's going on? I said, and we sat down at the table and I said, look, it's been my dream to speak on stages. She's like, yeah, I know. I said, well, you know how we've dumped several thousands of dollars into this coach right now? She's like, yeah, I know. I said, well, if you look in our bank account, we have 17 cents. That's all we got. And when I said that to her, she was like shocked that we were that broke. And then I said, and I'm sorry, but I have to give up on my dream today. And I remember how embarrassing that felt, that I just dropped my head and I started crying. And she just sat there, I believe, just shocked in silence for what felt like an eternity. And as I'm crying at the table, she finally speaks up and says, you know what, Jesse, I'm not going to let you give up on this dream. We're going to figure it out. And when she said that, it changed my life, because I was like, even if I don't believe in myself, I have someone who believes in me. That's why having the right people in your life are so important. And then I said, you know what, you're right. We don't have money. I'm working a full-time job, trying to be husband, trying to be dad, trying to do all these things. I don't really have a lot of time, and I don't really have connections in the space that I'm trying to get into yet. So I didn't really have many strengths working in my advantage, but I had one thing, and the right support around me and a determination to never give up, because I just needed that encouragement. And that's what led me into speaking and the coaching and the events that we get to do, is that one conversation of just realizing that I was more valuable than my fears. And I just chose to live my dreams rather than my fears in that moment.
That's deep, man. And you said something very important. It's very important to have people that support you and support your dreams in your life, but to have your significant other understanding that when when the situation it's that tough, that's even more powerful. So yeah, respect to you and of course your wife when it comes to that. How long ago was this?
That so I did some things prior. I would go around speaking, but I was doing it volunteer wise in 2014. And then it wasn't until like 2019, which is where I started to take it a little bit serious. So I was around that time.
Gotcha. And walk me through a little bit, like in terms of the audience, because of course we can break down the avatar of the speaker that you're working with. Is it mainly business owners that try to promote their business through speaking events or putting their own events together, or is it more of a broader spectrum of speakers? Because I know I've been to a few events, and it can be a wide variety of speakers that we can kind of put into this genre, I guess. Is it a specific avatar that you're mainly working with right now?
Yeah, so it's going to be typically entrepreneurs they're going to fall in the category of they're going to be authors, speakers, and coaches.
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
ultimately, they're going to be an entrepreneur of some sort.
And then your main focus is to teach them how to kind of put their own events together or speaking on other events or both?
It's a combination. So the very first thing is they got to learn how to master their message and presentation skills on stage. Because if you don't learn how to show up powerfully on social media, you don't learn how to show up powerfully at other people's events, it's harder for them to buy from you. And so that comes down to getting clarity in your messaging, the problem that you solve, your audience that you serve, and why you're doing this. And then learning how to present those key messages from stage. So first it's master the message, and then it's monetize the message. And I help them do that through helping them have the right products and services that they can offer on the back end of their presentation. And then also helping my clients create their own events. So they don't have to wait to get booked on stages. They don't have to send out endless cold calls, emails, and DMs, compete against hundreds of other speakers for one slot. They can book themselves on their own stage and have more purpose and profit from their own event.
And for people listening, when you're saying stage, a stage can be virtual. A podcast is pretty much your own stage. Anytime when you go live or you post a video, it's your own stage, right?
Absolutely. It could be virtual. I say your phone is your first stage. So if people are like, well, I don't have a venue. I don't know how to put together. Take out your phone, hit record, and then upload it. There you have a stage. That's simple. Let's start there.
All right. So I'm actually very curious now. If you can share a little bit in terms of your process, because you said you help them master the message, then you go into, all right, let's figure out what is your proper product suit, and then from there, kind of, or reverse engineer the process itself. When you say master the message, are you trying to, or are you helping them with, because every time when I have a client where I talk to somebody, I remember 2-3 weeks ago, I was talking to a mortgage company, and then that was my first question to them in terms of like, all right, who's the ideal, like I know you guys can help everybody, but who's the ideal avatar? In your case, when is the message starting? Is it identifying who they serve? Or like, I'm curious to find out about your process.
Yeah, great question. So first it's understanding, I call it the pay method, PAY, problem that you want to solve in the world. Obviously, as entrepreneurs, we solve many problems for different demographics, but what is the main problem, right? So identify the main one problem, and then understand the A, which is who is the audience you want to serve. Yes, we all want to say, I serve everyone. Okay, yeah, we all say that. Everyone can benefit from this. No, they cannot, okay? There's probably about 7 billion people that don't even speak English, right? They're not going to understand your presentation. They're just not. So, okay, so 7 billion people are out, most likely. So you got about maybe 1 billion left that can understand your message if you're speaking English. So what part of that 1 billion can you serve at the highest level? And so really understanding their pain points, their problems, their dreams, and their desires. And then always come back to your why, because a lot of times speakers, they get discouraged if they're not getting the results because they're so caught up in the how. But I think if you focus on the why, you'll figure out the how. A lot of times speakers, they try to get to the how, and it can be overwhelming. But if you have a why, you always figure the how. And that's the very first step that I walk them through.
And let's go even deeper into that. How do you help them identify that why? Like, what's their mission? How do you help them craft that, pretty much?
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to, learning more about why they wanted to speak to begin with, asking them a why this problem, why this audience, why now, and why you. And once they can identify those things, they can start to unravel more about, because most people don't really get asked about their why at a deep level. And so they just say, well, I just want to help people. I mean, everybody says that. Yeah, we all want to help people. Absolutely. Or I just want to make money. Of course. But there's something deeper than that. So let's get to the core of why you're doing this.
It is not even wrong. Like you just said something in your last answer. You want to make money. I remember I saw a video yesterday. I can't remember exactly who said it. And he said, man, if at the beginning, if making money is your core motivation, there's nothing wrong with that. But be honest about it, because if not, your audience is going to figure, they're going to understand real quick in the first couple seconds of the video, or maybe a couple videos that you put out. Don't just bring up a bunch of fluff and BS and say like, oh, I care about this and that. But if you just want to make more money at first, like, be honest about it, because people will appreciate that. Like, yeah, you'll reach some people out because that's what it is. But that was something interesting that I heard yesterday, and it's a time and place for things like that too. All right, so going a step further. So they identify their why, and now do you work on, like, when it comes down to their why, like how much you help them craft their, like, what is it? Is it a slogan that you work with them for? Is it
talk? Yeah, so it's helping them craft like a signature talk. Like, what is the one key message, and helping them outline the presentation, right? The beginning of the presentation, I call it the hook. How do you capture attention? The storytelling, how do you keep attention? The content is how do you open up and expand their mind? And then a strong call to action is how you give them a next step when your presentation is done. And so we walk to how to frame that message from the beginning, and then give them time to practice with me in real time. They go back and forth. I give them feedback for their entire presentation, and we keep adjusting and keep practicing until when they go time to present, they can just crush it on stage. During
that process, can you share with me some of the main mistakes and maybe some of the uncommon mistakes that speakers make? It can be, I don't know, like any kind of things that come to mind now. Like, what is the main mistakes that you see after working with your clients?
I mean, they don't have structure. I mean, beginning, I didn't have structure when I was speaking. I was, I'm going to speak from the heart, and I did good. Like, I spoke from the heart and I did good. But once I got a structure and a framework that is scientifically proven to work to be more effective, my speaking became more clear. So a lot of times speakers, they don't have clarity. They just know they want to help people and they have a powerful story, but they don't know how to frame that story to help people. They just know they want to help and they have a story. They don't know actually how to make that story help somebody. So the beginning of their presentation is usually a disaster, because in the first 7 seconds, your audience is making a snap decision if they want to listen to you or not. So in the very first 7 seconds, a speaker's like, hi, my name is, thank you for having me. How's the weather? Like, they say all kinds of stupid stuff and no one cares about. Almost every speaker does it. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, get to the point. Like, we're here. You're the authority. You're the leader of the room. We're hanging on your every word, and you're going to come in here and reintroduce yourself, because typically you've already been introduced by the person before you, and then you came up and reintroduced yourself. You're wasting your time. Let's hook my attention. So typically they don't have a strong way to hook attention. They don't have proper storytelling techniques. They don't have a 3-step process. I believe everyone should have at least a 3-step process. Could be more, could be less, but a process that you can teach. And then they're confused about their call to action, their next steps they want the audience to take. And so there's a lot of confusion, and they don't have clarity on how to frame that all together.
When it comes to the structure that you help them craft, how much it has to do with kind of adjusting that structure to their style versus, no, you have to do it this way, or since your structure it's already proven to work, you kind of quote unquote force them to adjust their style to the structure. Like, which way is it? Like,
yeah. So I never tell someone you have to do my structure or this isn't going to work. I don't do that, because I still have to allow people to be authentically themselves. I show them a framework that is proven to work. Now, if they take it and use it, that's on them. I'm just going to show them the steps. They don't have to follow it. that's on them. And I don't change their message. I don't change their story. I don't change their style. I still always allow them to be themselves. I just encourage them to find a way to take your unique style and follow a framework that it would be most beneficial to the audience, because speakers, they typically want it their own way because they're only thinking about themselves, which is what I did for years. This is the best way to do it. And then I learned from other people that were further along than me, it's probably not. I made a lot of mistakes because I was so obsessed with my own story. I didn't think about the story of the audience. And so speakers, a lot of times, they just get in their own way.
No, I totally relate with that. I remember, I only spoke like physically on stage probably 5 times. And I remember it's only the last time, which was last year, instead of thinking, right, you get a little anxiety right before going on stage, not knowing, like, all right. But what I realized was, instead of worrying about, oh, do I look okay? Is like what people are going to think about me. I switched it to, if it's one tip that people can take from this presentation and be able to maybe either implement it today or take it with them home and be really impactful, that would be a win for me. And that completely changed the way that I showed up on stage. And because I wasn't worried about me anymore, I was worried about what can I do for them. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters when you're on stage. Would you agree to that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most definitely, for sure.
All right. So if somebody comes back to you and says, well, it's hard for me to do, or it's hard for me to implement this structure because my story is different, because my service is different, because my product is different. I'm a big believer into try to not reinvent the wheel and not copy what works, but model, of course, what works. And that's why I said I really relate to your process of not trying to force your framework into their style, is more adjusting their style to your framework. What's your rebuttal to that? Like when your clients come back to you and say, well, Jesse, my story is different, my product is different, what do you say to that?
Well, I would encourage them to let them know that everyone's story is different, everyone's product is different. But one thing that is the same is some universal principles. And so when you're presenting, there's a few key components in that presentation that will help you connect with the audience better. Effective storytelling. And if you can make the story about a certain pain point in your own personal life, that's going to get the audience to relate to you. And if your product or service, whatever it is that you're specifically selling, you got to provide value before you sell the product or service, which means you're going to have to show them that you're the expert in the space, whether you're teaching or showing proof or testimonials before you go to sell your product and service. And so they can have the most unique product and service in the world. I just believe that the framework is universal. It's just the customization of how you implement it. You get the freedom to do it how you please.
No, that makes perfect sense. And you mentioned testimonials and proof and things like that. What about people that come to you and say, well, I'm just starting out now, I do not have testimonials?
Which is okay, and that's a thing. And I would say, hey, has there ever been a human being on planet Earth you've helped since you were 5 years old? Let's get them on the phone, okay? And so let's see if we can get somebody to at least say something nice about how you've helped make their life better in some way. So, people starting out, they don't have really testimonials of like, hey, this person coached me and got me this result. They may not have that, but I would just say, I'm sure there's somebody in your life that'd be willing to vouch for you and say that you've done something to help encourage them in their journey. And maybe we could just start with them and just start there.
Would you ever use like the actual speaker's result? Like, let's say, I don't know, maybe think about someone that talks about weight loss, right? If they lost a lot of weight, but and they're trying to become a speaker and put, get their name out there and they really want to go off their stages and build their own stages, would you use their own story into your framework until they get testimonials, or you still want to go off there?
It's going to be a combination. So if you're someone speaking on weight loss and you want to have people hire you for weight loss, it'd be good for them to know that you have followed the steps yourself. So showing before and after pictures of yourself would be great. I mean, you are the best proof in that story because you've lived it. And then if you don't have testimonials for someone before and after, then you're just going to highlight what you've done and then how you will help other people achieve this before and after result.
Yeah. Going back a little bit to the storytelling, I feel like everybody's struggling with storytelling, and there's so many different aspects of it. Can you come up with a way to simplify it for people? Like, let's, if possible, maybe if you can extract the storytelling part or the storytelling framework, quote unquote, to help someone that they're trying to kind of learn storytelling or apply storytelling for their own story and their own business and whatnot, in a not simple, I guess, simple, but it's not easy, right? In a simple way for them to kind of understand it. Like, I feel like storytelling nowadays has so many different components, and you hear so many, and of course we have ChatGPT and all the other tools that we can, but at the end of the day, it still comes down to how you articulate it, how you can emphasize it in a way that people understand it.
Yeah, I mean, if they're looking for, some storytelling techniques, you want to first have a character, right? That's the very first thing. Identify the character in the story. And so I believe the best storytelling would be a character being the speaker. And so you would focus on you as the character. You want to make that character likable, meaning you're going to describe some good qualities about the character potentially that they may like, so you can get the audience to support that character. It's the same framework they use in movies. Every movie has a favorite character. We watch the movie because there's one character that we're like, I love this guy, I love this girl, she's awesome. So there's a character in that film or in that story that we like. And then after you have a character identified in your story, you jump into a conflict. So if there's no conflict, there is no story. There is no story, there is no conflict. So if you're trying to make a point, tell a story. And if you're trying to tell a story, make a point, and always have conflict, and make sure that conflict is it's relatable to your audience. Make sure it's personal, like it's about your struggle. And then you also make sure that it's vulnerable, meaning you're sharing some challenging part of your life. This is where you build know, like, and trust factor here. And then from there, you jump into your content, which is where it's not just you explaining what happened in the story. You're teaching how to get through this process. So in the beginning, you hit the heart, open up the heart of the audience. But in the middle of the presentation, you open up their mind and their head. So now they can look at you as an authority. They can believe you. They may want to hire you. They may want to work with you. Because if you just tell the greatest story on earth, but they don't believe you're an expert, they're not going to work with you. So you have to have your process of content that you can teach them. And then you shift over to this is where you shift over to like the call to action. This is where you just quite literally have a conclusion. And the conclusion could be, buy my book, download my PDF, join my mastermind, meet me in the back room.
Whatever.
Yeah. So that's a simple, story framework.
I like that. And I like the fact you placed the character conflict and then all the little, now for people to not get confused, because we told them, you told them you start with a character and make it likable. How can we do it in a way, avoiding what we just said at the beginning of this podcast? Make sure you do not start with like, hey guys, my name is, and then I do blah, 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 right? How can we, I'm assuming it's the hook over there before you kind of build the character. Do you use the hook as a part of the storytelling, or how do you how do you kind of craft the hook and how you transition the hook to the character itself without doing that mistake?
It will depend. So some people will ask question-based hooks to get people to think. So for example, like, by a show of hands, how many people in here ever been afraid? That's a question-based hook, right? Because almost everyone's been afraid at least once in their life, so we can relate. But you don't have to ask a question-based. You can do a story-based hook. Something like, I still remember that time where I got that phone call that changed my life forever. And then you start into story. So there's all different kinds of hooks that you can play with. I actually just created a hooks resource that a lot of people reached out to me about. That. I've just been sending it out because I found really a bunch of great hooks to start a presentation. So it's really going to depend on what type of hook that you use in the beginning, but a good hook can also roll right into the story.
And so I really like now the first one, the question hook. By show of hands, how many people here have been afraid of something, right? You can even, because it's an open-ended question, like afraid of what? Like, oh, damn, everybody, has been afraid of something at some point. Like, doesn't matter who you are, what do you do? And then obviously the second one is also powerful too. Now, if we're talking about creating the hook in a video format, when nobody's going to respond, or you post a video and then eventually somebody was going to comment or maybe ask questions, how do you think that applies in a video format or even in a podcast format? And of course we have the what do you call them, like the coming up type of hooks that people can kind of listen or see parts of the show that are really important for them to kind of stay hooked. But how would you do it in a video format, for example, when you're not going to be able to get the feedback on the spot?
Yeah, I mean, so like people go live, and so usually what they do, like on a Facebook Live, they'll be like, "Hey everybody, how's everyone?" And they do this 3-minute greeting while they wait for people to come in, right? Because they got to get the notification out, and then people join the room. And it kind of makes sense why they do that, because they're waiting for people to join. However, most lives are actually watched on replay and not live. So if I'm watching someone's Facebook replay live and I'm scrolling through and they give me a 30 to 45 second greeting, I will keep scrolling. However, if they capture my attention in the first 3 seconds, I'm going to stop the scroll. And so when you're doing video, you want to think your first sentence, whatever it is, needs to do something that stops the scroll immediately, because a lot of people are just going to watch it on replay. And so it's going to pretty much follow the same framework as you do in a physical stage as doing it virtually. You just have to stop the scroll, which can be even more challenging because people are scrolling all day long, and you have to do something that immediately captures attention and gets them to stop.
How long is the hook in your opinion? And of course we have a combination of YouTube long form content, 10 minutes and above, and then we have the short form reels, when you really have to have, like, now we're talking visual hooks, audio hooks, written hooks, like they're like, so how do you combine these? Or maybe do you have a format or a preference that applies to all of them? Or of course, it can be separate.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just, if you're trying to get more advanced on, reels, then, you always want to just look up what's the trending audio, and you just research those things and then just put them in there. So when you're doing long form content, you can have a little bit longer of a hook, right? So if you have if you're doing a 30-second video, your hook's going to be like 3 seconds long, like literally 3 to 5 seconds. It's going to be quick, and it's going to be something that really captures attention. But if you're doing a 20-30 minute video, your hook could, be a little bit longer.
All right. So we got the hook part down, the storytelling where we kind of position the character to be likable. What if someone just has a villain type of character? Do you put that type of character on a pedestal for this story, or you try to transition and make it, a villain can be likable too. Like there's so many different movies that you see that. But how do you, like if someone comes back to you and says, well, no, I like my style is just this and that, and I'm typically the villain. Maybe, I don't know, like when it comes to like memes or all kinds of dark humor jokes type of stuff.
I mean, I think one of the best ways to get your character to be likable is to show that you are relatable to most people in the audience in some way. Where that could be talking about your family, that could be talking about some of your goals and your dreams. But even one that brings an even stronger connection is when you talk about your struggle, because everyone has a struggle.
Oh, what's struggle. That? Okay.
Struggle. Yeah. If you talk about your struggle too, like you could talk about your strengths and things that you do well, spend a little time on that, and then transition into, these are some of my challenges and struggles. Now you build a character that they like, because they're like, this person's just like me. I have struggles too. I have pain and I have problems. And if you can reveal that vulnerably, not too vulnerably, there is a fine line. if you can, just share some of your pain and your struggle with your audience, they will start to like the character in the story because they feel they can relate or they once were that character.
That makes perfect sense. All right, so we got the hook, storytelling, character. What about the teaching part? How do you help speakers not share too much, or maybe this is not a thing, but you hear so many different versions of, oh, you have to only teach this much to not give away everything. But then you have Gary Vee that says, no, give away your best stuff because 99% of people won't do anything. Or Moses says the same thing. How is your framework kind of combining these, and what's your favorite way to go about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're presenting on stage or physically or virtually, you want to drop knowledge. Like, you really want to show that you're the expert, you're the authority. And so, yeah, I don't think people should hold back their knowledge. I think that you provide the information. So like, the information is free. The implementation is a fee, right? So I'm going to give you the frameworks. I'm going to give you all my knowledge and wisdom. If you want me to show you how to specifically implement that strategically, that's a different conversation. But I will give you all the information I have. It's just that when it comes to the implementation process, most people are not going to be able to, like, all right, you gave me the framework, I know exactly what to do, because you don't know what to do, where, how, why, and when. And so it's like, they have the idea, but I think you just pour out the information that you have. That's what I do in my lives, our events, my trainings, like that. I'm giving them as much value as I possibly can, because you want to just, form goodwill. You want to serve, you want to support, and you want to help people, at least be 1% better by the time this video or this presentation is over. So you got to provide them with tangible, teachable content that they can at least have for their life. And then, you can be the one to lead them there, hopefully, if they want to work with you.
Man, I'm going to quote you on that. I have to listen exactly what you said, but you said something, what I'm sharing is, it's free, implementation is a fee. I like that a lot. Like, that was a really good one. I'm going to quote you on, I'm going to use that for promoting this episode, because that was, can't remember exactly what you said the first.
Information is free. Implementation is a fee.
That's a really cool one. All right, so we got the hook, storytelling, character, the information, and then now it comes down to the pitch. This is where I see a lot of people kind of struggle with being afraid to pitch, or just kind of feeling awkward to pitch for one way or another. Why do you think that is? Or do you see that in your own?
It's very common, because they don't believe in their value. And so
why?
I believe a lot of people don't believe in their value because we might go crazy here for a minute. So
Good.
I believe that most people think that being poor is a good thing. Now, they don't actually say that out loud, I want to be poor, because that would just be crazy to say out loud. However, their resentment towards rich people, they're hating on wealthy people. They think that wealthy, rich, and successful people are cheaters and they're thieves and they manipulated and they inherited it. So they have a really negative feeling about people who have a lot of money. And so you cannot become what you hate. So if you hate it, you can't become it. And so every time that you want to grow your business and make the sale and make the pitch, you hold back and you self-sabotage, because if you were to get all this money, you would become like the person mom and dad said were bad, evil people, and you don't want to let them down. You don't want to hurt their feelings. So you self-sabotage and play it cool, and you don't make no sales, and then you say, this business is not working. But it's really not that. It's the mindset around the concept of money, because they think money is bad, and having a lot of it is evil. And so no one wants to be evil. And so they'd rather struggle financially the rest of their lives and not really sell themselves, because they don't want to become what they think is evil.
And if it's something that you can give people really short, it can be a sentence, how they can fix, and of course, we're not talking about fixing your entire mindset for the last 20 years now, but if it's something that you can give them really short, quick, how they can kind of go past that awkwardness, or to not feel awkward when they pitch. What do you think it can be? Is like more clients, and then now they realize, oh, actually what I'm doing, helps people, or like, what is it? What do you think it's something that people can take home and be like, oh, damn, I didn't realize I can do this without feeling awkward or whatever.
I think it comes down to the money mindset. I mean, it really does. And so until that gets fixed, I don't think no sales pitch is really going to work. Even they could have a great presentation and a great product, but if their mindset about getting money from people is off, it's going to be a challenge for them. So I think it comes down to for them understanding money has a great way of providing value once it's in the right hands. So if all these rich people are evil, right? If they think that they're all bad and they all stole and they're all corrupt and crooked, like, how about you be the one to change that and you get the money because you are a good person and then do some good with it. You can do more good with the money than you can without it. And so I think it is our moral obligation to sell as many products and services as we can if we believe that the product and service that we sell helps people. If you believe that it helps people, it becomes your responsibility to sell it to them because it's helping them. Selling is, people get weird about the word selling. Change the word. It's not just selling, it's serving. So if you don't like the word selling, you're serving. You can serve people at a higher level once they have your product or your service to make their life better.
That's one of those moments when you drop the mic. But you said something really cool, and I know we're getting close to wrapping things up. But you said something like, "All right, even if you don't necessarily change the mindset right now, and you still think about all these people that are bad, that have money and they're rich or whatever, how about you start with you? You're not a bad person, and nobody's gonna say about themselves that they're bad." So I like how you it's powerful, but it's simple at the same time for people to kind of wrap their head around. Man, these were like really powerful tips that you shared today. I know you mentioned about your competition, your speaker competitions. Can you just quickly share how can people find out more about those if they want to work with you or they want to participate into that?
Yeah, I mean, you can connect with me, right on social, Jesse Cruz on Facebook. Send me a DM, and then we just have a conversation and see if it's a good fit, and we'll get you going from there.
And I mean, if people would just take what you shared today and apply it, I feel like you could make a really big difference in the way that they kind of craft their own presentations and really get better at their kind of speaking abilities. If people want to work with you more, what do you prefer? Do you have a discovery call page or anything like that, an application that people can go and check out?
Yeah, they can quite literally fill out my speaker application. Did you want me to drop that in the chat?
Yeah, if you put that in there, we'll put it in the show notes and description of the episode. And I know we're really getting close to wrapping things up. Is there one question that you feel I should have asked you that would have made a difference for people listening or watching this episode?
I mean, overall, I think you asked incredible questions. I would just say that, for the people out there who are listening and they're still like struggling with this concept of speaking and storytelling and wanting to, sell more of their products and services, I just want them to think about the person that you could help, and you chose not to help them because you didn't choose to tell them about your product or service, and how that person is now in a worse condition, in a worse place in their life because you didn't help them. Like, the best thing that you can do is to share your story on a stage and have a service or product that you can sell them to help change their life forever. And if you don't get that to them, they're going to stay in pain. And I don't think we want people that we love and care about to stay in pain. We want to help relieve the pain. So go out and share your story and relieve the pain of other people.
Brand up.